Welcome to Emerging Franchise Brands, the podcast that introduces you to the visionary founders of America's fastest growing franchise opportunities. We'll also hear from industry pros as they share what it really takes to achieve the elusive milestone of 100 plus locations. I am your host, Frank Fiume, founder of I9 Sports, and my 20-year journey from inception to acquisition has given me a unique perspective on how to succeed in franchising. Join me as we welcome today's guest. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. On today's show, I have the founder and president of Bumble Roofing, David Bitan. David, how are you today?
Frank, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on, David. So tell us all about Bumble Roofing.
Oh, wow. We just have an hour, so I'll try to as quick as I can. I founded Bumble Roofing out in LA about 6 years ago in 2019. After noticing something that was significantly missing in the industry. And when I say industry, I'm talking about home services at large. I'm not just talking about roofing in specific. And that was a customer experience. What I noticed with leading companies throughout several different industries is the ones that started to understand that customers come before everything, and the experience that the customer receives, those are the ones that ended up being successful, right? And so when I spent prior to Bumble Roofing, right, I spent about 10 years in the home service space. Most of that was spent in commission sales. Part of that was spent in owning a previous business, which did everything general remodeling. I realized that the entire industry just doesn't get it, right? You got to put your customers first, and that's what it's all about. And so launched Bumble Roofing in 2019 out in Los Angeles, really with that mantra, right? The mission was to serve the customer as best as possible. And we did that, and we'll get into that in a bit. We did that through offering an easy sales process, utilizing technologies that roofing companies weren't utilizing before, making that sales process easy, not just for the customer, but for the team inside the office to ensure that customer experience is 5-star every single time.
Sure. And I bet you could actually apply these principles, of course, to any business, but I would love to know why roofing.
Yeah, so that's a great question. Prior to Bumble Roofing, most of my experience was general remodeling. I messed around a lot with several different trades. So I'll start off. I'll back up when my career actually started. So I started out in the home services, call it home remodeling construction industry in 2007, 2008. I went to college for about 6 months up in Santa Barbara when I realized school was just not for me. Moved back to Los Angeles, where I've been practically my entire life, and decided to figure out my next move, my career choice, right? And so I came back at a time where it was very uncertain. 2006, 2007, people were losing their jobs, people were losing their businesses, and I'm this college dropout trying to figure out what I'm going to do. And luckily, I had an opportunity to go work as a commissioned salesperson for a large home remodeling firm. Now, at that time, I had no idea what I was getting into, but I'm glad I jumped into that. I saw success pretty quickly. But what I noticed time and time again, I hopped around through several different trades and companies over the course of 6 years. I noticed time and time again that I won't say all, because there's some great firms that I worked for, but most companies put the dollar over everything, right? It was all about the profits. It was all about making money, and it didn't matter who they upset along the way, whether that be their vendors, their employees, or their customers. And so that got me to a point where I realized all of the relationships that I'm building, right? The local services, it's all about building relationships and building your network so that you can hopefully get to a point one day where your cost per lead or cost per acquisition is very, very low because everybody knows you in your community. Well, I got to a place where I'm building these relationships, and the brands that I worked for ended up tarnishing my reputation, right? Which would ruin that network. So I got to a point where in 2013, I said, enough is enough, decided to launch my own company. That company was full service A through Z home remodeling. We did it all, everything from roofing, windows, whatever you needed in your home, we were able to service. We grew very quickly. About 2 years in, we were doing about $10 million in revenue every single year.
Wow.
And I realized at that point, that I don't have any training manuals in place. I don't have any systems or processes. It was kind of just all up in here. And anytime I would bring a salesperson or employee on, they would have to, go under my wing. And when I started realizing that and wanting to build it out, I realized doing every single trade under the sun, it's kind of impossible to teach, right?
Yeah.
It's very difficult to become an expert. And so I quickly realized I need to change things up. So the original plan was to scale down and offer only energy efficient products. At that time, uh, energy efficiency was becoming pretty popular in Southern California. So I wanted to focus on roofing, solar, HVAC, insulation, and windows. Those were going to be our only 5 products. As I
Okay.
started building out the spreadsheets and performas, my father, who's one of my biggest mentors and always has been and still is today, he comes to me and says, "David, listen, you're still doing $10 million a year. Like this, you're changing the entire business, right? It's rebranding, it's new marketing strategies. Your salespeople may leave you. Think twice
Uh-huh.
about what you plan on doing." And so I did. Ultimately, I decided to sell that business. That business was acquired in 2000, late 2017, early 2018. And that's when I decided to figure out what my next move was. Originally, it wasn't home services. I said, I'm done with that. And after looking at several different industries, I realized really home services is the only business that the sky isn't the limit, right? Like if
Sure.
you find the right trade, if you find a good business model, the success that you can have monetarily is exponential. And so I was looking at several different trades. The first thing that I wanted to focus on was I wanted to focus on one trade. I didn't want to do everything under the sun anymore. I didn't want to focus on energy efficiency and do 5 products. I wanted to find a trade that's stuck in the past and very fragmented from a customer experience standpoint. And so
Love
there
it.
were several. Roofing obviously was one of them. And then ultimately, when I started breaking it down, I wanted whatever trade I get into to fall into 3 buckets. Bucket number one is I wanted a high ticket purchase. I didn't want to have to sell to 500 different customers before reaching that $1 million mark. Bucket number two is I wanted a product that's in need. I am sick and tired, or I was sick and tired at that time of selling wants. You can only imagine trying to sell a kitchen remodel, how long that sales process is. And
Right.
number three is I wanted a product where it's in and out. I don't have to spend 30 days in a home or more to get paid. I want to get done within a couple of days, get my paycheck, and move on to the next customer. They're looking at several trades. My final 3 were roofing, insulation, and then outdoor living products. So like one of our sister brands, Architect, shout out Architect. One of our sister brands, Architect. I really love doing like outdoor kitchens and pools and things like that. Ultimately, roofing was the only one where the shoe fit perfectly, right? Every single bucket that I looked at, it's like roofing, roofing, roofing. It just made sense. And so I launched Bumble
Uh-huh.
Roofing specifically because of that, and more so with wanting to change the way that people purchase roofs. So originally, which obviously the way that the sales process and the brand and everything has evolved. It's changed since then. But originally, it was all online. You meet with me via a Zoom call within 30 minutes or less. You have a proposal that I've measured via satellite imagery. And if you like what you see, again, no pressure, no hard close, one call close, right? We let our branding, our sales process, and then our drip campaign speak for itself. And originally that was the entire process. Now we have a good looking guy or girl that shows up to the home with a smile, with a branded vest, with a branded truck, which does definitely help the overall closing ratio. But that was the original plan, and that's why I decided with roofing.
That is so smart. It's such a gutsy move too. We can't overstate this. The fact that you were so aware of exactly what you wanted and to be able to focus on cutting down on the home services early on, because there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there. And I'd love for you to speak to this, to the person who has a home services business where they offer so many different services because they're afraid that if they reduce the amount of services they offer, they're not going to bring in enough revenue.
Yeah. So it's funny you bring that up. One of my biggest mentors, his name is Gabby. He's like a call him a motivational speaker slash home service guru that I've known ever since my first job when I was just about 19 years old. When I came to him after I had my last business acquired, American Improvers, and told him, hey, I'm planning on focusing on one trade. He's like, you're absolutely nuts, right? Exactly like what you're saying. Like, what you're going to go into a home and somebody wants flooring or windows and you're not going to sell it to them? I'm like, correct. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And the way that I explained it, and this is actually something I learned from a seminar I went to. I went to a seminar in Nashville. I'll back up. Back in 2017, prior to selling my last business, and I got connected with this guy named Danny owned a large HVAC firm on that trip, and he was basically like my wingman that entire trip. Right? He gave me a lot of information that I took back home with me, and that paying for that trip was worth it just because of Danny. And what Danny showed me, right? We were in this room with probably about 100, 150 other home service brands, right? I was the only brand in there out of the entire room, at least from what I saw, that was focused on every single trade. Every other brand in there, they're doing 10, 20, 50, $100 million a year, and they're doing one or two to three trades that are under the same umbrella, right? So you may have seen an HVAC company that does plumbing and electrical. You may have seen a window company that does siding and doors, but overall, they're all falling under the same category. And the way that he explained it to me is, David, we live in a day and age where people want expertise, right? People don't look in the yellow pages anymore and find the one company in there and just trust it based on, word of mouth. People can go online today, they can check their Yelp, they can check your Google, and people want experts. And you see this across every single industry, right? Your best legal firms, they're focused on one specific industry. Your top doctors, right? They're not family practitioners, right? They're the ones that are like even plastic surgery, right? They're focused on rhinoplasty, right? Or they're focused on one specific trade, if you want to call it that. And same thing goes for home services. If you want to be the expert, if you want to make it cookie cutter, right? If you want to scale, you have to focus on one thing and just continuous development, continuous learning, and making sure you're at the top of the food chain.
Brilliant. I love it. I couldn't agree more. I've always said that anytime you try to be, everything to everybody, you end up focusing on nothing. And when you do that, you just kind of dilute your brand as well.
Exactly. Exactly. That's
Yeah.
like if you were to have a podcast for absolutely every business in the world, you're doing something specific, and that's why you've seen so much success.
Yeah, yeah. But I think many of us we came to that realization too that even if you want to offer so many services, you obviously it hurts the brand, and there's also the cost of being able to try to service in so many different specialties. But people don't think about that because they go into business and like I want to make sure I can drive enough revenue, so I need to offer everything, and it's just it's not the best way about it. But I can see why that comes up. Right. Hey, David, let's talk about how did you come up with the name of the company?
Yeah. So I came up with the entire business plan and brand over the course of 72 hours. I'll never forget this. This was me and my wife now, but back then my fiance. We're sitting in our two-bedroom apartment. One of the bedrooms was my call it office. I didn't really have anything going on at that time. It was just more of a desk and a computer. And when I decided I'm going with roofing, right? I locked myself in that room for basically a full weekend. I got to share it with you at some time, but I have like I drew everything out, like what the website will look like, what the brand will look like on just white 7 by 11 printer paper. And the way that I came up with the name, so one, I believe that business, and this comes from the religion I practice. I'm Jewish, right? We believe in always doing better for the world and always giving back, right? A big part of what I do is to give back to my community, to give back to my local temple that I go to and I practice at. And so I believe business, right? If you're making money, that should be a vehicle or a vessel where you're giving back to something, to some sort of
Sure.
cause, right? And I think every business should have some sort of story and should have some sort of whether it's a nonprofit or not, something that they give back to. So when I was thinking of the brand, I'm like, okay, I want to give back to something that I actually care about, that makes sense, but that fits with our entire story. Now, when I had my last business, American Improvers, we gave back to a nonprofit called Homes for Our Troops, which would help build homes for post 9/11 U.S. veterans. that couldn't afford to build homes for themselves. And so
Nice.
prior to coming up with the Bumble Roofing name, I'm like, okay, what can I give back to? Now I knew that I wanted a mascot, right? I knew I wanted a mascot for my roofing company. So ultimately, I'm like, okay, what kind of mascot should I do? Everybody loves furry little animals. Let's look into little furry animals that may make sense. The first choice, Frank, was actually kangaroos. So I was going to name it Kango Roofing. And
Oh gosh.
ultimately, I'm like, okay, well, this might be a good fit if I was, maybe out in Australia, but I'm not gonna, people aren't gonna buy the story of me giving back to a endangered kangaroo species out in Australia. And so, after doing much research, I found out that our pollinators, our bees, are on the verge of extinction.
Right.
And you may or may not know this, but because of pollinators, one third of the food that we eat comes from them, right? And so
Uh-huh.
I decided, okay, I need to figure out something in the pollination world. I was looking originally, it was bumblebee roofing. I took off the B. I'm like, Bumblebee Roofing doesn't sound like something that can become a household name. Let's focus just on Bumble. So it was Bumble Roofing. The original slogan was roofing in a buzz because we do everything so quick. We make it so easy. But I felt like roofing the easy way makes a little bit more sense, and that's why we ultimately went with that. Now we have partnered, and we currently do sponsor a nonprofit called the Xerxes Society. We are a national sponsor now. You'll see us on their website right next to Burt's Bees and Honey Nut Cheerios. So we about a month ago we did uh, a little community event out in Richmond, Virginia, where we went out and planted some plants and flowers for our pollinators with partnering up with the Xerxes Society. So really excited about that.
I love it, David. That is such a great inspiration for other people. Again, to when they're developing their company name, that there's something so meaningful behind it. I love it. I love the contribution side of it. Beautiful. Let's switch gears here a little bit because you did something that not every founder does, but is certainly really, really common in the home services franchise business. But so you started this, I guess it was what, 2019 originally,
Correct.
right? And then, so when you got a few years in, right, you partnered up with Empower Brands. So, a lot of home services obviously are platforms in the franchising community where started by a founder such as yourself. I kind of like to kind of get your mindset here on what prompted you to, instead of just continue to grow Bumble on your own, to partner up with Empower.
Yeah. So obviously when I founded and launched Bumble Roofing, the plan was to always scale, right? That was like one of the focuses was focusing on one trade, making it very cookie cutter, easy to copy across other locations. A couple years in, I start looking into building a chain. I'm like, okay, let's see. I could do this on my own, right? I was successful in LA. Why can't I open more locations throughout California? This shouldn't be too hard. So I had to raise some money. I started talking to family and friends. I did a family and friends. I wouldn't call it a real family and friends round. It was more just phone calls and emails to some people in my network and seeing if anybody was interested. I gained a lot of interest. And during
Okay.
those conversations that lasted for about 60 to 90 days, an old buddy of mine ends up buying into a restoration franchise. And I mind you, Frank, I had no idea franchising even existed in the home service space. I thought it was your fitness and your food, right? I thought it was a small little box. I was actually completely blown away when I was taking Empower Brands invited me out to my first IFA out in Vegas, and I'm like,
Right.
like what? Like my entire life. And so when I learned that you can franchise a home service brand, I'm like, okay, I want to look into this. Like, because to me, franchising makes a lot more sense. The way I see it is with a chain, right? And you see this a lot with the private equity roll-ups right now of different home service brands, is with a
Sure.
chain, you have a management team, right? That's usually sitting behind some screen and some nice office space and some nice market that's trying to run all these locations with lower level managers. The problem with that, Frank, is that local service businesses need somebody on ground floor that has some meat on the table, right? That actually wants to see that brand succeed, but more so understands that specific market. Like you can't just go into any market, especially in today's day and age, right? People what we see a lot now with our marketing strategies is that the digital side isn't trusted like it used to be 5, 6+ years ago. Today, right, I have it on my phone. People have screen locks or app locks on certain things like Facebook that used to work very well for us 5, 6 years ago. Today, most people don't want to be on their Facebook page for more than 15, 20 minutes per day, right? And so they may not see your ad. And so it's so important to, and we talk about this all the time with prospects and with franchisees, it's so important to get down deep with your local community, right? Build your network, go out, knock some doors, join some BNI groups. It's all about who you know, right? In
Uh-huh.
this type of business, I always say this helps gets you in the door with a new lead, but the ultimate success is when somebody says, "Oh, you need a new roof? You should call David," not Bumble Roofing, right? Bumble Roofing helps with a lot of the other things, but the lead gen part, you want to get to a place where everybody's calling you by your name. And so that's like when I realized franchising could be a thing, that's when I said, "Okay, I want to franchise this baby." And so originally I hooked up with this consulting firm that was going to help me start franchising the business. I quickly realized that even with a consulting firm, I'm not going to grow as quickly and as efficiently as I thought I could.
Sure.
And that's when I decided, let's find a partner. I thought, bring me a partner in, right? Although I may be selling myself short a little bit too early, I thought bringing a partner in could help my company really grow rapidly. And so that's what I
Uh-huh.
ultimately did. I met with several different buying groups, one of them being Mid-Ocean and Empower Brands, and the rest is history.
Wow. And so you had one company on location at the time, right, in LA, which I understand you still have,
Correct.
right? And so as a founder, tell me kind of what did you go through sort of emotionally in this process? Because in a way, you're kind of you're bringing somebody into your home. You're giving away your baby a little bit. You're co-parenting. And what was kind of going through your mind when you were thinking about signing on that dotted line on what life was going to be potentially like?
Yeah, it was. There was a lot of unknown. It was, every day was different emotions. I
Uh-huh.
won't lie to you, the due diligence process, working with a private equity backed company was a lot different than working through due diligence with a private buyer like my last business. So that was emotionally draining. The entire process took just under a year. The reason for that is that Power Brands was acquiring other brands at that same time. So everything did take a little bit longer, but I had very high hopes. I didn't have as much belief. Obviously, now I do, right? We're only a couple years in, 24 franchisees, upwards of 70 territories, but I didn't I didn't think it actually could be done. I'm like, who, is going to come in, see this company that has one location, right? Like to me, it's like my
Right.
small business. Like why would anybody else believe in me? Why would anybody else, believe in what we're doing? And ultimately, right, a big part of that is Empower Brands. Like I am sure that if I were to do it alone, I would have sold some franchises, right? But I don't
Sure.
think we would be where we are today, right? The support, the capital, the expertise, the experience, the mentorship, the rest of the platform, right? We have brands that are part of Empower Brands that have been around for 30 plus years, right? They're opening up now best practices to me. There's doors that have been open for Bumble Roofing that have done, like, for example, we have a Lowe's partnership now, right? I can't tell you how much cold outreach I've done to the big box stores. I haven't seen one email back till today. No people that email, right? And so, like, you join a platform like Empower Brands, there's doors just magically open, right? People that I've tried meeting with before, all of a sudden knocking on my door, they're in my inbox wanting to meet with me. And so, I know I made the right decision for myself and my family, but ultimately for the brand.
Yeah, it sounds like there's certainly there's a give and take, right? When you're becoming part of a platform because you can't make all the decisions anymore on your own. But I think the reward far outweighed the risk for sure. And you were not going to get that kind of growth that you've gotten otherwise, because it's too crowded of a field with too many franchise opportunities, and the home services just seems to really lend itself to be part of a platform more so than I think almost any other sector in franchising.
I agree.
Yeah. So, would you share with the audience, like, so now what is your role? You are the brand president. You'll always be the founder, but so what is your role today as being brand president? And what are some of the things that you no longer have to do?
Yeah. So it's fun that that second part of the question is pretty funny. Have to do anymore. Um, I'll have to get back to you on that one because there's a lot that I still have to do, being that we are an emerging brand. When I say have to do, we have the team members behind it, but I always say like I bootstrap this business. So there's things like, for example, I started doing, sales coaching calls again about 4 or 5 months ago. So now I handle sales mentorship calls, sales coaching, not to put myself on some pedestal, but nobody does it better than the founder did it, right? Like
I
you,
agree.
you've been there, you understand the customers, you understand the sales process. So that's something
Yeah.
big that I've taken upon myself. Overall, though, my job as brand president is visionary, right? Where do I see the brand over the course of the next year, 3 years, 5 years, and so forth? And building on that, right? So whether that's meeting with new tech vendors, technology vendors, and finding the best new tech that we can implement, right? Whether that's building playbooks with my team, overseeing my teams, right? I have an ops team, we have a coaching team, we have a marketing team, we have an IT team, making sure they're all working, in harmony together. But
Uh-huh.
ultimately, it's a lot of meetings, meeting with different vendors, meeting with different partners, seeing where we can lower the pricing, through economies of scale, seeing where we can add different softwares and technologies, and ultimately what we can do to make the franchisees experience more efficient, and the customers experience a lot better.
Sweet. Well, David, I mean, obviously you guys are off to a rocking start, right? You launched, I guess your first franchise opened in 2023, right? So about
Correct.
2 years now.
Yep.
Okay. There's like 4,000 franchise brands that are out there, and you've got 24 open, and you've sold, like, you have like 76 territories sold
Yep.
already.
Correct. 76 territories.
Okay. How? How have you done it?
Yeah, I think two things. Number one is, I mentioned before, it's empower brands, right? It's the experience. People want to buy experience, especially when you're buying an emerging brand or a new brand, right? Our
Uh-huh.
first five franchisees, they bought in partly because Bumble Roofing is a great brand, right? We do very well with our entire customer experience and how we implement different puns throughout our sales process, our good, better, best packages, our Honey Hive and Queen Bee, our warranties, our sting free warranty. We have a maintenance package, which we call our Royal Jelly maintenance. So the branding is, to me, and obviously I'm pretty biased, is one of the best in the home service space. But you can have the best branding in the world, right? Where's the support? So the second thing is empower brands, right? You have experience from top level, right? All
Uh-huh.
the CEO Scott Zide, who was once a franchisee and now runs this great platform. We have a team of, like, if you put all this experience together, I don't know of any platform that comes close. But on that same note, empower brands wise is the support, right? Scott Zide, the CEO who leads Empower Brands, understands how important it is to provide support to his franchisees. And so, in my short time of being in franchising, I learned that franchising, just like every other industry, there's a lot of great franchisors out there, but there's a lot of fakes as well, right? And so,
Sure.
when I say fakes, maybe they're not fakes, but they're selling you a brand or a license to use their brand, right? And then here's a playbook, go out and get them, right? We really care about what we do at Empower Brands, right? Across every single brand. We're coaching our franchisees. We speak to our franchisees on a daily and weekly and monthly basis. We have check-in calls. We look at this as more of a partnership and like, hey, we're not here to collect your initial franchise fee. Like, in order for us to be successful, we need to make sure we collect a royalty, right? And in order for us to collect a royalty, you have to sell whatever product we're selling. And so that takes a lot of support, especially when you have people coming in, from the corporate world or not, with zero experience in this field. You have to make sure that they understand what they're doing, that they're getting coached every single day, and that they have support and a shoulder that they can lean on every single day.
With that said, what do you think is the kind of person that really succeeds in your franchise brand?
Yeah, I get this question a lot, Frank. Uh, to me, it's really it's two things. One, with any business that you're starting off, you have to give yourself 2 years of tunnel vision determination, right? Like this is all I'm going to be focused on. I always say, right, family and health come first. Your business comes in a very close second. But this is the number one thing you should be focused on. There should be no outside noise, right? Understand that if you build this properly, you can get to a place within 12, 24, 36 months where the business is running itself. You have cash flowing in, and you can go do all the things that you wanted to do, whether it's opening up a second business or taking those vacations throughout the year with your family, right? Or going to your kids' soccer games or whatever it may be. Um, but it takes 12, 24 to 36 months to actually get there, right? I was able to get there about 36 months in. I obviously had much larger plans and most franchisees do when they come into this thing, but everybody's a little bit different. So the number one thing is to have somebody that is dedicated to what they're doing, right? Somebody that is willing to become a student of the industry every single day, somebody who's willing to follow the process. The process is proven, the process works. It worked for me. I wouldn't be here today if it didn't. And somebody who understands that it takes hard work. Whether it's an emerging brand that has 24 franchisees or a brand that's been around for 30 years that has 100 plus, you're still opening up a brand new business in your market. So you get the playbooks, you get the technology, you get all this stuff. It makes it easier to fast track, but
Right.
you're still going to have to get out there. You're still going to have to meet your local community. The marketing strategies, they do take time. You can't come into this thing thinking, hey, I'm just going to, I just bought a business. I'm going to put in 24 hours, 30 hours this week. And I'll be successful, right? You got
Yeah.
to be busting your butt from day one. And that's really the only way that it works.
Yeah, there's no shortcutting it, and I don't know what franchise or what business you can operate that is otherwise. I mean,
Exactly.
that's the long and short of it. So, are you looking for primarily people who are single unit operators that are going to own only a Bumble Roofing, or do you have multi unit operators that have other brands as well under the umbrella?
Yeah, so we have some multi-unit operators. I would say it's really a case by case basis and figuring out what we feel like they could actually chew, right?
Uh-huh.
We've had people come in that say, hey, we want to buy 7 territories of Bumble Roofing. And we ultimately tell them, hey, you're way in over your head. We're not going to sell you any. And while some brands may say, hey, we'll sell you 50, right?
Uh,
We really want to, for two reasons. Number one, we're good people. We want people to be successful. We don't want to see them fail with, investing into Bumble Roofing. But more so, we want them to be successful because of us. We are an emerging brand. We can't afford to just bring franchisees on and not have them succeed. And
right.
so we have a mixed bag, right? I would say most of our franchisees are owner operators with the goal to become an executive model. We tell everybody from day one, an executive model is not going to work. And if it does, it's going to take you a lot more time and a lot more capital up front. We're most likely going to say no to executive models up front. Because again, I mentioned to you, a local service business needs that owner operator that has meat on the table, that understands his market. You can't expect to live in California and open a Bumble Roofing of Utah and throw a GM there and think that they're going to grow this thing into an absolute monster, right? So
Uh, Yeah, I agree. I can really appreciate your honesty and being upfront because they're not every brand is like that. Their sole focus is to, sell how many franchises they can, and then they'll let them figure it out.
yeah.
But I could really appreciate your honesty and setting the expectation on what they really need to do to be successful. What's one thing that you've learned maybe throughout this franchising experience that maybe has surprised you the most?
Um, It's hard. You think you build a successful business in Los Angeles and that it's cookie cutter, just like I said. And as you open new locations, you realize, okay, every market's different, every personality is different, right? Every owner is going to be slightly different. What do we need to do to make sure that we can optimize this to ensure that it works across every single location? So, playbooks that we had 3, 4 years ago, they've completely flipped upside down, right? Our sales process, I mentioned to you originally, it was everything online. There's areas where people don't want online. People want you to come home and have breakfast, lunch, and dinner with them before they buy a roof from you, right? LA is a market
Right.
where you walk down the street, people don't even lift their heads up to smile and say hi, right? Where there are other markets where people are inviting, they want you to come into the home. And so I think that The biggest challenge for us early on, it's changed, but early on was figuring out how we take the existing model that worked in LA and ensuring that it works everywhere else. Now, luckily for us, LA is not a roofing market. It rains out here. Frank, I'm sure you may have been out in Southern California before,
Sure.
but it rains out here at most a total of 2 weeks throughout the entire year. And so the fact that I was able to launch a brand from scratch for in the roofing space in Los Angeles, California, that says a lot, right? Like, so if the way I see it is outside of Alaska, if I was able to be successful in Los Angeles, there's not one market that you shouldn't be able to succeed at if you follow the playbook, you follow the process, and you're dedicated to what you're doing every single day.
Sure. Are there markets right now that you're super excited about launching?
We have one of our franchises in Florida who's just waiting on a state license. Florida is a little bit more tough when it comes to that, whereas most other markets aren't. So I'm excited to see him launch because it is a big roofing market.
Uh,
Overall, the way I say it though, Frank, is we're selling a need, right? It's a need-based business. As long as there's a roof, as long as there are homes and property owners, every market to me is pretty much the same, right? Like
of
you get
course.
me into any market, I'm gonna sell roofing. Again, except for Alaska. Alaska's its own different type of beast, but um there's no specific market per se that I would say that I'm excited to open. As long as there's roofing, it's a need. I look at it as an oil change, right? As you need an
Right.
oil change, you're going down to your body shop. It's not like people when people the cool part about Bumble Roofing being that we're so young is there's so much white space on our territory map. So we're
Uh-huh.
able to carve out special territories for franchises who come on board. And so a lot of these prospects, they ask me like, "Hey, what would you say? Should I take this area, which is a little bit lower income, this area, which is higher income gated communities, HOAs?" I'm like, it doesn't really matter. One, we offer financing, so even your income folks, they can afford us. But two, you're not selling a high end luxury, right, kitchen remodel or backyard remodel. You're selling something that when people call you, they need it. They don't have a choice.
Right. Right. Yeah, absolutely. David, where do you see this brand growing over the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, numbers wise, so a couple of things. One, we want to get to a point like our number one goal. Obviously, not everybody succeeds in any business, whether it's franchising or not. We want to get to a goal where we have an 80% success rate across our franchisees. Now, what that
Uh-huh.
means to us is that our franchisees are reaching their goals. That to me is the ultimate form of success, right? We have our own goals and our budgets and our spreadsheets. I want to make sure that they reach their goals financially and personally. Second is we hope to get over the course of the next 5 years. Wow, um, our goals are 100 plus franchisees across the network. Again, that's the corporate goal, but to me, number one is ensuring whether it's 24, 50, 150, that at least 80% of our franchisees become successful. This brand, right? It holds it sits in a very warm place in my heart. Like I built this thing. I've been through other than actual blood, I've been through sweat and tears and just like any other business owner, right? I've had days where I've had anxiety. How am I going to make payroll and how am I going to do this? Ultimately, when you look at the
Absolutely.
full picture, it's like I would do this over again 100 million times. But knowing what I know and knowing what I've been through, and it having such a close place to my heart, um, it's really important to me when franchisees come on that they become successful. Like to me, like when that the parent-child relationship that we call it in franchising, like it really is a parent and child relationship. My franchisees will tell you, like they have my phone on speed dial. Like they could be inside of an appointment, they could have a question regarding a bid or whether a subcontract or you name it. If I don't reach out back to them because I'm on a podcast or on a call, they're going to call usually within 30 minutes after. And I understand how important it is not to have hours. I don't work from 9 to 5. I work if as long as I'm awake and my phone is near me, you're going to get a call back because I understand how urgent, right, that response to your question may be. And
Oh,
so ultimately, I'd like to see the brand in a place, regardless of the number of franchisees, where at least 80% of our franchisees see success.
Yeah, well, that's what it takes to build an empire, right? I want to note something. I think this is really important for the audience to hear because you have people who are interested in becoming part of your franchise system and they hear, oh my gosh, 80% successful. What about the other 20%? But I think this is really what's important for the audience to also know is that every franchisee has a different definition of what they deem is successful, right? Because not all franchisees have the same aspirations.
Exactly. And on top of that, franchise or not, approximately 20% of new businesses go out of business in their first year, right? Regardless of the system, regardless of the product they're selling, regardless of the industry. And so 80% to me is a great number. Just because, again, just like you mentioned, everybody has a different vision of what success is. Some people's success isn't financial, right? Some people's success is,
Right.
I want to be able to coach my kid's soccer team 3 times a week and still have a business that's paying all the bills. Some people's success is, I want to make X amount every single year and I'm not going to stop until I get there. So there's financial success, there's personal success. Um, it really depends on what they're looking for. And that's what I mean by 80% success.
Absolutely. Well, David, if someone was interested in learning more about Bumble Roofing, where would they go to learn more about the franchise opportunity?
BumbleRoofingFranchising.com, EmpowerBrands.com, or BumbleRoofing.com.
Awesome. All right. I got one last question for you.
Yeah.
I finish every podcast with the franchise tip jar because the franchise community is so generous with sharing advice and tips and tricks and strategies. So I got this one for you. David, what would you say is probably the most underrated skill that a franchisor needs?
Um, I think it's listening. Listening to your franchisees when they speak and not going head to head with them. Meaning, what you know, what I've noticed throughout the industry is there are franchisors out there that it makes no difference to them what their franchisees say. This is the way. This is what we're doing. If you like it, great. If you don't like it, sorry, you're SOL. Um, Listening to the problems of franchisees day to day is what helps you recalibrate, further develop, and ultimately help you grow and succeed, right? So we've built, and we build this across every single brand. We built a franchisee advisory council, which is pretty common across the franchising space,
Sure.
where 5 of our franchisees currently, they come together. We have monthly meetings with them, and we talk about the things that are painful. We talk about the things that may be harder, right? We talk about the challenges, and we fix that, right? I've had several deep dive calls with our franchisees. I hold these once a quarter. It's just me and the franchisees, and I tell them, listen, I work for Empower Brands, right? But what you got to understand is that I was once in a place like you are, and I want to make sure that you're getting everything that you need. This is an unrecorded meeting, right? Tell me everything that you feel, right? How's our support? How's this team? How's that team? How's the playbooks? What's missing? What can I do personally to ensure that you see the success that you're looking to get, right? And I think that's so important for a franchisor to understand, is that we have, as my dad always says, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, right? Shut up,
Uh-huh.
listen to your franchisees, and that's ultimately what's going to help you become the brand that you want to become.
Great advice, listening and being collaborative. Those are at the top of my list as well, David. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. I wish you all the continued success with Bumble Roofing.
Frank, thank you so much. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.